Hello, Mets fans. Welcome back to another midweek edition of the Just Mets podcast. My name is Rich MacLeod, coming to you live on Thursday night, just about 5-10 minutes after the Mets and their series with the Minnesota Twins. And holy shit, what the hell was that game, man? Oh my God. We will recap the whole series, but got to start with just an instant reaction from the finale of this series, which the Mets do win. They win the game and the series. They win the finale by a score of 10-8 by the skin of their teeth. Devin Williams, dude, I really wanted to trust Devin Williams as the closer. Oh, the numbers look great under the hood. He just had a bad year. He'll bounce back. He looked better later in the season with the Yankees. No, dude, like 4 straight appearances for Devin Williams where he is either completely melted down or come as close as you possibly could. This game this game was insane. But the Mets do somehow, although they tried their hardest not to, they take 2 out of 3 from the Twins. They win their first series since the beginning of April when they won 3 out of 4 against the Giants. Had not won a series since then. So they've done that. They won their second series of the season at home. And they broke finally on Wednesday night. They break their 12-game losing streak, which was their longest losing streak since the 2002 season. I was 11 years old when that happened. That's how long ago it was. So long ago. The Jets won the AFC East that season. That to put it into perspective, that's how long it's been. Jets have not won the AFC East since then, I believe, which is pretty insane. And yeah, I mean, that was a weird, wacky series. The Mets were in every game. Easily could have swept. Game one of the series had started off as good as you wanted to. At that point, they had come into the series having lost 11 straight games. They had an off day, but you had Nolan McLean on the mound, who was, the guy that you would feel the most confident in on this pitching staff to attempt to stop a losing streak. And he did his best. He was perfect through 5. They were up 3-0 because Lindor hit a 3-run homer. Vibes were pretty good, but as we've seen so much during these last few weeks and really just the entire start of the season, the offense just couldn't do anything else after that. They were not able to add on at all. And McLean, as we've seen him do a few times, especially this year, seemed like he kind of hits a wall at some point, usually when it's the third time around the batting order, which is an adjustment that a young pitcher is going to have to make. Oftentimes, he's not even pushing his pitching, his pitch count limit. We've seen it happen at 75, 80 pitches where he starts to get hit around a little bit more. I think that's just going to come with his adjustments to the major leagues. Also, sorry for my voice. I've been sick the entire week. I got sick traveling back from LA for a work trip over the weekend and have not recovered from it. This is also the second podcast I'm doing this evening. I recorded a Patreon exclusive podcast about 3 hours ago, watched the Mets game, watched the Knicks lose yet another 1-point playoff game to a team that they have a higher seed than, watched the Jets make their 2 draft picks. And of course, I went into the draft. I don't want to make this about the Jets, but I go into the draft saying, I only want 2 things. I want Arvel Reese with the 2nd overall pick, and I want a wide receiver. And the Jets did neither of those things. They did not take Arvel Reese, and they did not take a wide receiver. They took a tight end instead, and I know he's a good tight end, but still. Anyway, it's been a long night. It's been a long sports night. I'm very sick and I'm very tired, so I don't know how long I will go here. For whoever's watching on YouTube or on Twitter, leave some comments. I'll pull them up as we go. If you want to leave super chats, that's cool. But if you want to leave regular comments, I'll put up any relevant ones. I'll answer any questions while we're on here. But yeah, the Mets did lose that first game, courtesy of Devin Williams' previously most recent meltdown, where he comes into a tie game after McLean gave up the lead in the ninth inning. Can't get anybody out. Issues, I don't know how many walks, 2-3 walks, doesn't get anybody out. Adam Warren actually winds up coming in, cleaning up his mess. It starts with sarcastic cheers when he gets the first guy out, but by the time he strikes out the side, Citi Field was roaring as if the Mets had just won the pennant or something. It was honestly pretty fun if things hadn't been so miserable to that point. And then of course the offense couldn't score. It was another very fast 1-2-3 ninth inning, extend the losing streak to 12, and we really got to a dark place. I mean, I think we've kind of been there for a while. I had reached some feelings of apathy already, which I don't know that I've ever gotten to in April before. And, it gets to the point where you're like, is this team ever going to win a game? Until I see it, it's almost hard to believe. And I think you could really see that impacting the players in these games, especially on Wednesday, game 2 of the series, which they did eventually win. There was a lot of moments in that game where you could just see the players are really pressing, especially when they take the lead, they give it back up. Clay Holmes was really great in that game. 7 innings, 2 runs. But both times the Mets scored, he did eventually give up the lead back. So it was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, back to 2-2. And you start seeing as the innings go on, the Mets pressing and like trying too hard. And I know oftentimes when a team's not scoring, it's easy to feel like, oh, this team's not trying, they're not doing anything, they're dogging it, this, that, and the other thing. Well, a lot of times it's really just these guys are so in their heads and they're almost trying to do too much that it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. And you see these kinds of things like Mark Vientos running through the most clear stop sign you'll ever see from Tim Leefer. He runs right through it on a 2-out double, gets thrown out by a country mile at home plate. Was the ire of Mets fans for a while last night. Later in the game, when it's still tied, Juan Soto winds up getting picked off. He gets thrown out by quite a bit because he's just trying to make something happen in his first game back. That was obviously a huge boost for the Mets this week. Soto comes back. And you could just see, it was really getting to these guys, but, they got a little bit lucky, which they really haven't gotten any luck at all during this stretch where Vientos bloops one inside out to pitch into right field. It falls in. They're able to take the lead with 2 outs in the 8th, which was good for Vientos, especially after making that base running blunder earlier in the game and, really putting a target on his back. And Luke Weaver does a great job. He comes into the game before they take the lead, strikes out a guy with the bases loaded to get out of the inning. They wind up leaving him in. He gets 3 strikeouts in the 9th. He winds up getting the win, and you could see it on his face when he looks up to the sky. You get the cool flame shot behind him. I just said a few days ago, like SNY doesn't have any cinematic shots anymore when they've made the director change and everything that happened over the off season. But they wound up with a cool shot there last night in slow motion, and you could see it on Weaver's face when he looked up to the sky of like, okay, like we can exhale now. We got the monkey off our back. It was very difficult. It almost seemed like we needed an act of God to win this one baseball game, but we did it. And hopefully that allows this Mets team to breathe a little bit and move forward, and just like try to put this streak behind them, like to undo the damage from it in terms of just the standings and their overall record. That's going to take a long time. It's going to take weeks, if not months, of playing just like really quality baseball, because you lose 12 games in a row. Like you did quite a bit of damage to yourself in the standings, but it can be done. But honestly, I think the bigger thing for them right now is just being able to move on from it emotionally and, hopefully not grip the bat quite as tight. You saw tonight, yes, they had a lot of issues pitching, and we are absolutely going to talk about that just because that's the most fresh game. And boy, was that stressful to watch and frustrating for sure. But you saw tonight, the day after they break that losing streak, the offense scores 10 runs. And should have only needed 7, but we'll get to that. They jump out to a huge lead. They're up 6-1 pretty early in the game, 6-2, or 7-2, and they didn't do this against the Scrub. Honestly, they were, just a few days ago, we were looking at this team struggling to score against Simeons Wood Richardson, who throws 92 miles an hour and can't throw strikes. We see him getting shut down on Wednesday, having struggles hitting against the young lefty. We've seen them get shut down by decent, if not no-name pitchers, not aces, but they wind up putting up, 6 runs on Joe Ryan, who is a very popular trade candidate, probably the best pitcher that the Twins have. And they kept it going. They're up 7-2 in this game, and you're feeling good, even though, we haven't gotten to this, but Lindor goes on the IL coming into this game. I think that's the big negative coming out of this week is and it's what makes you feel sometimes like this team is cursed, is that the same game that Juan Soto returns from his calf injury in, Francisco Lindor injures his calf the same exact way that Soto did, running around the bases. They wind up only playing 5 innings together before the other one gets hurt. Sounds like the injury to Lindor might be a little bit more serious than Soto's. We're not 100% sure yet. Soto's wasn't serious. He still missed about 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. Will be a good opportunity for Ronnie Mauricio, but obviously kind of like a kick to the nuts for the Mets last night, especially with where they were at that point, having yet to break their losing streak, finally getting Soto back, and you're like, oh my God, now we're missing the other superstar. Like, did we do something to somebody in a past life? Did the baseball gods ever have any designs on giving us a break? Who knows? But yeah, even without Lindor, they wind up scoring 10 runs tonight. But we'll have to talk about what happened at the end of this game, because I'm still, I don't want to say jazzed up by it, but I'm still, the anxiety, the adrenaline, I guess, is still pumping through my veins after watching that, because, once the Mets are up 7-2, they kind of got relegated to one of the smaller screens in my apartment, because again, this was a huge sports night, honestly, with juggling, editing the Patreon pod that I recorded a couple of hours ago, watching the Mets game, watching the Knicks playoff game, and then watching the NFL draft, all happening simultaneously. So when Mets take a 5-run lead, they get put on the side TV on mute, where I'm just periodically looking over, but mostly listening to the draft. I have the Knicks game on another screen. I had the Badlands, shout out to Badlands. I had their draft YouTube stream up, and I was listening to their commentary. Different points, I had the KFS watch party in one of my ears. There's a lot going on. And at really no point was I concerned about the state of the Mets game. It was pretty quiet. Christian Scott didn't pitch very well, made his debut. He only goes an inning and a third. Didn't give up a hit, but he just couldn't throw strikes. And then we kind of get all the long men appearing in this game, other than Sean Manaea. Tobias Myers pitches a couple innings. David Peterson takes the bulk of the work, having lost his spot in the rotation. And for most of the game, it's 6-1, 7-2, 7-3. Really no concern at any point. And then it seemed like with all of these things, all hell broke loose at the same time, because simultaneously, genuinely, because I had these things on all of the screens at once, I can testify to this. At the exact same time, give or take maybe 5 seconds, the Mets gave up a game 2 out, game tying grand slam in the 8th inning, having been up 7-3. The Knicks give up a game losing shot with about 10-12 seconds left to the Atlanta Hawks. And the Jets make their second pick of the first round, which I was fully expecting and praying for a wide receiver. And they take Sadiq, the tight end, instead, much to my chagrin. And all of these things happened at the exact same time. And I felt like my head was going to explode. I had texts reacting to each of the three things separately. So I didn't even know who was texting me what the fuck about what, but like it applied to all the different things. And the most shocking one, honestly, was the Met one, because that was the screen I wasn't looking at all. I had seen Kimbrel come in the game. He's struggling to throw strikes. He walks a couple guys. He gives up a hit. He comes out of the game with the bases loaded with Brazoban. And even though the tying run had come up to the plate, and with as bad as everything has been for this team recently, there really was not a part of me that was like, oh yeah, they're about to give up a game tying grand slam. And it wasn't until, I saw Michael Barron, who co-created Just Mets with me, and he does all the newsletter stuff, essentially text me like laughing in all caps. And I was like, oh, something insane must have happened. So I wound up looking to that screen in my apartment. And I see 7-7 and the guys rounding the bases on the Twins, that I just like could not believe that this is what happened. And yet, I don't know. Are you really that surprised, especially with the way things have been going, with how difficult this team is making it on themselves, and maybe the baseball gods are making it on them to just get a win. So they blow the game. At that point, I'm sure every single person, every one of us, every one of you watching is like, all right, they blow a 5-run lead. They give up a dramatic game tying grand slam with 2 outs in the 8th. Like, clearly we're not winning this baseball game. We're going to lose it in some hilarious Metsian fashion. The offense will probably go down quickly, and we'll lose in the top of the 9th or extra innings or something. And that'll be that. And we'll just be happy with the one win that we got. And much to our surprise, it looked like it was setting up for that way, where the Mets get first and third, bottom of that same 8th inning, with 1 out. Mauricio comes up. He's in place for Lindor. You're hoping that he's gonna, make his mark and make an impact in his first game taking over for Lindor, but he winds up popping out. Runner gets pinned at third base, and it's just like, all right. And here comes Tommy Pham, who is on this team, at least for now. Credit Tommy Pham, who is still hitless. He's not gotten a hit since returning to the Mets. He's 0 for 11, but he does work out a walk against another former Met, Anthony Banda. And that moves the line to the top of the order, where we get to see Bo Bichette. And I put out on the Just Mets Twitter account, okay, you know what? Like, we're almost a full month into the season now. Like, this is the point in time where it's Bo Bichette needs to have his, vintage Mets moment, right? And huge credit to Bo Bichette, who I gave a lot of grief to on the Patreon pod that I recorded a few hours ago. That's, I guess, a little bit out of date now already. But he came through and he crushed a 3-run double. It was almost a grand slam of his own, off the wall in left center field. All 3 runs score. Mets take the lead. You feel great for him. Just like a huge monkey off his back. I really hope that more than anything, these last 2 nights are monkeys off the back of a lot of these players. And I think that that's going to be the case for everybody except Devin Williams, who I mentioned when I opened the show. But oh my God, like, first of all, the 9th inning starts with Devin Williams thinks he's been brought in. He comes onto the field. They're like, no. Like, there's a mix-up. They keep Brazoban in. Brazoban gets a very quick out. Then they pull him. Then Devin Williams comes in with a 10-7 lead, 3-run lead. already an out and nobody on in the ninth inning. Gets the first out pretty quickly. So it's 10-7. You're up 3 runs. Crowd's vibing. Just got that big hit from Bichette. There's 2 outs. There's nobody on. Great opportunity for Devin Williams to bounce back and erase the meltdowns from the previous week and a half that he's experienced. And, much like all the other players in the Mets, like, get that weight off of his shoulders. And what does he do? He gives up a hit. Then the Twins are a strike away from losing. And he gives up another hit. And then he gives up a double. And all of a sudden, before you blink, and this goes from 10-7, 2 outs, nobody on, to 10-8, and the tying runs are in scoring position for the Twins. And the crowd is groaning and expecting the worst. Everybody at home probably has their hands on their head or is laughing because they've already lost their minds early on in this season. And man, like, he gets the strikeout, he escapes, but holy shit, Devin Williams is under contract for 2.5 more seasons. The Mets saw this, man, and I really did try to rationalize this signing in the offseason, although I will say, in my defense, mostly because I said, as a setup guy, I see how this can work. But they watched this man pitch all of last year for the Yankees in this exact same way until he lost his closer's job. And they said, yes, please, give me that, and give me that for 3 years. And we're less than a month into the season, less than a month into this 3-year contract. And I think he's already done enough damage where he should be removed from the closer's role. And it should be given to, I don't know, Luke Weaver, who I know has also had a couple of meltdowns. But if you had to pick between the 2 former Yankee relievers, I trust Luke Weaver way more than Devin Williams, who is just like a walking meltdown at this point. And, there's a lot of new players on this team where it's too soon to tell is it they can't hack it in New York thing, or is it just a bad start thing? With Devin Williams, I think we can officially say this man cannot handle New York for whatever reason. Like, Pete Alonso truly broke this man. And I thought he was bouncing back. His first 5 appearances with the Mets, he didn't give up a run. He looked very good, very competent. I felt really good. I tried to ease my co-host of the show, Andrew Claudio's fears about him. Like, hey, 5 appearances. Like, he hasn't even really come close to blowing it. Like, I think it's time for you to trust Devin Williams. And look at what's happened since. And I gave Williams a break for the Dodger appearance because I was like, oh, he hasn't pitched in 9 days. I even gave him a break for the Cubs blown save over the weekend because it's like, hey, it's hard to win a game 1-0. Like, how about you score more runs? But now, I mean, look at these last 4 appearances. It is a absolute disaster. And thank God that he was able to get that last strikeout. I had some people in my Twitter mentions saying, like, honestly, maybe the only reason that the Mets didn't blow that save was because of the pitching mix-up, because there's no way Devin Williams would have been able to get 3 outs. At least they got to steal one with Brazoban to start the inning. And honestly, like, they're probably right for saying that. It really is crazy, but the Mets do somehow escape. They scored 10 runs. They needed every single one. They win 10-8. They win a series. And would you look at that? They've actually have technically a winning streak. They've won 2 games in a row, and you might not feel good about it, but it doesn't matter at this point. At this point, you just have to win games any way you can get them. There are no style points. You rack them up as much as you possibly can, and you hope that you can string enough together to eventually get back to 500. And that would be my piece of advice to Met fans right now is don't even bother looking at the standings right now. Like right now, the mission is get back to 500. If the Mets ever get back to 500, then I think it's like, okay, the season is officially back on. But right now, we're almost in like a reclamation project, and that could take a few weeks, if not longer. It really depends like how well is this team going to play. They are missing Francisco Lindor. I see some comments in the chat that I'm probably going to disagree with. Game for War says, notice as soon as Lindor is taken out of the games, the Mets start a winning streak. I knew people were going to do this, but also remember the fact that 12 games in a row is insane, whether you're winning them or losing them. And it doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter how good or how bad your team is. You cannot possibly like keep that going. It is a coincidence that they just happen to start winning when Lindor goes out. Like, let's not turn this into a thing because certain people don't like Francisco Lindor. The Mets will likely win a lot more games now without Lindor just because they were simply due, because we could all be negative about this team, and rightly so, and rip them to shreds and say like they had a bad offseason, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. We all know that they are not nearly as bad as they showed themselves to be during this losing streak. They're just not that bad. Nobody's that bad. They are not a 110 loss type of team. They're a team that was not playing well, and it kind of turned into like a snowball effect. So all due respect, Game for War, but I cannot possibly agree with this at all. Let's look at a couple of the other chats, and then I'm going to go to bed because I am shot at this point. Let's see what we got. Ray says Bo looked like Bo. Yeah, and honestly, I think that is truly the first time all year I think that Bo Bichette has really looked like the guy that we thought. Also nice to see him like pull a ball with authority. He so often goes to the other field, and which is fine because that is naturally a huge part of his game. But I think to see him just like rip a ball to the pull side and nearly hit it out of the ballpark, drive home 3 runs in a clutch situation like that with all that pressure right after blowing the lead, that was really big for him. And I do wonder if for him specifically, if that's going to get him going. A lot of Blue Jays fans say he's typically kind of a streaky guy anyways. So I'm looking forward to see, what this does for Bichette going forward. And maybe the leadoff spot, the way it worked for Lindor in 2024, maybe leadoff spot winds up being a good spot for Bichette right now. James Buckley, always a contributor on our newsletter comment section and in the comment section here on YouTube. Do you trust Christian Scott? Another bad Stearns idea, up too soon. Yeah, they probably called him up too soon. I don't know how I feel about Christian Scott. I feel like what we saw today felt pretty similar to what we saw when he first came up a couple of years ago, where he's got good stuff, but he just doesn't seem to know where it's going. He seems in the major leagues to struggle to finish hitters off. I think he's 10 starts into his big league career. He's never gotten a win before. And, I know wins are overrated, but oftentimes it's usually due to the fact that he's just not able to give them enough innings or enough quality innings. So, yeah, I'm not sure what to make of Christian Scott. It's too early to write him off or anything, but it seemed odd to bring him up now. And then, he only pitches an inning in a third. It kind of seemed like a weird backdoor way to do an opener, which didn't ultimately seem necessary. Didn't hurt the team because they didn't start giving up runs till the end of the game when Kimbrel came in. But yeah, I'm not sure what to make of Christian Scott right now. Ray with another one. Williams not in the circle of trust. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely not in the circle of trust. Yeah, Game for War. You definitely are the ultimate Lindor hater. Cool. One more. James again. My Knicks in 6 is still good, but getting worried. Yeah, man. if we want to call this the Knicks corner, I think Mets Up already coined that, and that was obviously based on the Zach Lowe and Sean Fennessy doing Mets corner on their podcast. But I'm not feeling great about the Knicks right now. This group for the last 2 years has kind of felt like one of those teams where just like something's always off, which I guess is not so dissimilar to what the Mets were going through last year. Obviously, the Knicks actually made a playoff run, a deep playoff run. The Mets didn't even make the playoffs. But yeah, whether it's like the players don't like each other or there's just something else going on, I'm not really sure. If it just doesn't seem to work, and there's always seems to be something off. And as a fan, like, they're really good and they're really talented, but there's a lot of times where it seems like there's just like a lot of fuck around and find out in the Knicks for some reason. And we've now have had 3 years in a row where they've had a playoff meltdown at MSG. A few years ago we had Game 5 against Philly where they melted down and they wound up winning Game 6. So it was kind of no harm, no foul. But it forced them to, in a situation where things could have gone very poorly for them going to Game 6 on the road, and that came down to the wire. Last year was probably the worst sports loss of my life, which was Game 1 against the Pacers, where they blew a 14-point lead with 2.5 minutes to go, and Halliburton, who I absolutely cannot stand, hits that buzzer beater game tying shot that bounces 40 feet into the air and lands in, and then they lose in overtime. And then Game 2 against the Hawks the other night, where they're up 9 points with 5-6 minutes to go, up 8 points with maybe 4 minutes to go, can't get it done, can't score. They wind up losing by a point. They lose by a point again tonight. They're down 2-1 in the series now, and I don't feel great about it. Brunson's gotten clamped. He doesn't look the same. Mike Brown has coached this series extremely poorly. And I say that as somebody who was ready to move on from Tibbs. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the orange and blue teams are going to give us too much more to cheer about this year, but I'm hoping the Mets season lives longer than the Knicks, because otherwise that means the Mets season is essentially already dead. So we'll see what happens with the Knicks. We'll see what happens with the Jets draft pick. I hope I'm wrong about them. I don't think they took bad players. It just wasn't the direction I wanted them to go. But this is a Mets show. And happy to say that the Mets finally end the losing streak. And now they have an honest to God winning streak. And let's hope they extend it. They continue their homestand tomorrow night. They are playing the Colorado Rockies at Citi Field starting tomorrow. You hope, again, like I predicted 4-2 for the week, super on pace for that now. I mean, God, if you could sweep them, that'd be great. But yeah, like just keep it going. If it's ugly, it's ugly, but just win the games right now. I will worry about how they look later. Right now, you just take them as you can get them. But thank you guys for tuning in tonight. For putting up with my strained voice. I'm going to go to sleep. But before we get out of here, if you like the show, please make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast app later, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, to give us a 5-star rating and review. It really, really helps the show. In the algorithm and all that stuff. If you want to leave a 5-star review and a comment, we will read those review comments on the show. We try to check those every week. So if you want to do that, we would really, really appreciate it. We will be back with a full show live on Sunday after the series finale against the Rockies. So that'll be me and Andrew. New episode on our Patreon drops at midnight tonight. So first thing Friday morning, I do a fun mailbag for about 30-40 minutes submitted by Mets fans and our subscribers. So make sure you check that out as well. Until then, thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and let's go Mets.